Keycloak out of code. Welcome to another episode here from the Keycloak studio. We have Keycloak 26.6 out, and that's a great moment to celebrate, and also hear from the other developers. And today I have two people joining me. So the first one joining me here on stage is Martin. Hello, Martin. How are you today?
I'm excited for this topic, yeah.
Yeah, great to have you here. And our third person on the stage is then Stefan. Hi, Stefan. How are you?
Oh, hello. I'm fine. Thanks for having me here today. It's going to be fun discussing Keycloak with the community.
Yeah, and then I hear tomorrow there's going to be a public holiday in Brazil, which is nice.
Yeah.
Not for me.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, next public holiday for me coming up is 1st of May. But then, yeah, let's introduce ourselves a bit. So, Martin, give it a go. Kick it off. What is your area of work? What do you do with Keycloak, or maybe outside of Keycloak?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Martin Bartos, and I was part of Cloud Native team. I'm with Keycloak for more than 8 years, sorry, even 8 hours per day. And right now I'm part of Keycloak core authentication team. So we will focus on authentication improvements as we have some space to improve. So looking forward to help with this initiative. Yeah.
Yeah, great things to come, but also great thing you've done for this release already. Yeah, handing over to Stefan.
Okay, so I'm Stefan Gillian. I've been working on Keycloak since 2014. Well, it dates back to more than a decade ago. On open source in general for almost 20 years now. Right now I'm part of the core IAM team, so things like storage, LDAP, workflows, organizations, they all fall under our umbrella. Yeah, I hope we can discuss some of those things. We have some pretty exciting things in 26.6. And let's see the reactions, and also wanting to hear from the community.
Yeah, great. Thanks for that introduction. And I'm Alexander Schwartz, so just Alex. I'm working on we used to be called Site Reliability Engineering Team, but now we call ourselves Production Readiness. So we did a lot of things around how to set up databases for Keycloak 26.6, how to do zero downtime upgrades. It's a great team, and with team effort, we delivered some of these features we will talk about today. About today's agenda, we will do maybe a 15-20 minutes introduction at the very beginning, talking about an overview, giving an overview of what we're doing. And I asked the people who are joining this stream to ask questions in the chat. And this is a live thing, so you can really ask all the questions you have and how the experts here on this stream. So Nico is joining. Hi, Nico. I know that you're from Germany. We met at Keycloak Dev Day. And Us00 is also joining and chatting here already. He wants to know about SCIM and Terraform. Yeah, we'll dive into that. So keep your questions flowing in the chat, and maybe also drop a line where you're joining us from. We're always curious. So maybe we can adjust our time zone a bit more for the next time. So let's dive in. So I'm now sharing the release notes. So the release note that's where you start, well, with the highlights. We have, not sure if anybody read the release notes yet, but definitely some people are deploying Keycloak 26.6 already. We saw it in our issue tracker. So we had the JWT Authorization Grant, which is our replacement for external to internal token exchange. Federated client authentication, for example, if you're running on Kubernetes and you don't want to have client secrets and rotate them, you can actually use the Kubernetes service account tokens for that. Sebastian Noszkiewicz and me gave a talk on that on the KubeCon Amsterdam. I think the video should be live by now. I have to look it up in a second. We have workflows, something Stefan is working on, zero downtime patch releases, and the Keycloak test framework. Well, Stefan, as workflows is such a highlight here, want to kick it off maybe with some words about workflows?
Yeah, so this is a feature that was first introduced, I believe, in 26.4 as a experimental feature. The core of the issue lies around automation of administrative tasks. So I think the use case that drove the feature the most was detecting inactive users. And also we had like a goal to try to replace another feature that is, I think currently it's still in tech preview, which is transient users. Never made it to support it. We don't have any plans to make it supported. So we needed an alternative. So those were the main drivers for the feature. And it's all about automation, right? It's about building like scripts within Keycloak that would take care of things like onboarding, offboarding, tracking users, or enforcing like security standards in a way that's consistent, so that you don't have to onboard manually. When you do things manually, there's room for errors, as you might skip some steps or do something wrong. So it's all about doing that and providing admins with a process that they can rely on, and that it's followed every time particular events are fired. So in 26.5, then it became tech preview, and now in 26.6, it's fully supported. That's the kind of brief history of workflows.
Maybe a surprise question from me to you is there anything I should not use workflows for, because it's kind of a misuse of it?
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, I would say that you have to be careful when using workflows. In a way, it's a feature that, whether you like it or not, it's gonna create more stress on the server if you run, for example, the periodic task that checks for steps to execute runs too frequently. Then you're hitting the database more often. We try to detach as much as we could the regular workflow processing from the Keycloak requests, so that it's triggered by events, but then we kind of branch it into its own transaction, so that it doesn't interfere with the flow, like for example with the authentication flow. I mean, you could do in theory anything, right? As long as you provide steps that support what you want to do with the workflow, you can easily plug in your custom steps and do pretty much everything. The question you should ask yourself is this something that will happen repeatedly? Is this something that I want to see automated in some way? If it is, then it's a good candidate. If it's not, if it's kind of one-off thing that you want to do, and if you have plans to implement steps that are overly complicated, then I would say that workflows are not the tool for that, right? You need to be conscious about resource usage, and there is an impact, whether you like it or not. There is an impact of the workflow engine running in the background and hitting resources like the database. So it's not for everything. It can do a lot, but we don't recommend like implementing overly complex scenarios with workflow steps.
Yeah, thanks for that introduction. That sounds great. For the matter of completeness, I shared the link for the release notes in the chat, so you can have a look there. But then, yeah, going to the next feature group or groups of features. Martin, what's your highlight of this release?
I think the highlight for Cloud Native team, for us, it was Java 25 support. Right now we support Java 25, which is nice, but there were some issues about FIPS FIPS system with JDK 25. So at the end, we cannot upgrade the container images by default to support OpenJDK 25, but it's coming. Will be there because right now we are waiting for the bouncy cuffs castle integration of the Java 25. So after that, we will be fully on the Java 25 support. So it will open some more doors to us, even for the development probably, right? So looking forward to it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and my personal highlight was definitely zero downtime upgrades for patch releases. So that was also something that was in preview for quite a while. We now upgraded to InfiniSpan 16, and with that, we have a lot of foundation work in there that allowed us then to really make zero downtime for patch releases supported. Somebody sent me an in advance question and asked, can I do zero downtime upgrades with a single node? Actually, well, that would still not be supported. You need to have 2 nodes running, at least for the time of the upgrade. So you can normally you can have 1 node running if that's sufficient for your setup, meeting your availability requirements, and then you would spin up a second node just for the upgrade, and then shut down the old node. So in this way, you should be able to do a zero downtime patch release upgrade for patch releases. And what we're doing there is, for example, there's a better handling of a graceful shutdown of Keycloak. There's something that's called a resource version, so that Keycloak, when you're picking up static resources from a theme, that you're then looking into that Keycloak will always try to send a response to the client, even if that resource version changed in the backend. And I'm talking to some community people to make that even more seamless in future versions when you have custom themes. But that's another story. Calling out to, I don't want to name the people here because I didn't ask them if they want to be named here on the call, but just whenever you think something can be polished there with zero downtime upgrades, let me know. So we can turn to some of the questions that already appeared in the chat. So Zeus is asking, are there any news if the Keycloak Terraform provider will support SCIM in the realm settings?
Not officially. What we can say is, so SCIM is kind of a complex topic in that there are many specifications, and we are focusing in.
Maybe we should introduce SCIM at the very beginning, right?
Yeah,
we haven't talked about SCIM yet.
Yeah, you can think of SCIM as some sort of a protocol for provisioning resources and synchronizing them, right, amongst IDM players. So typical usage is like you have a Microsoft Entra ID that you use to create your users on, and you want to propagate information about these newly created users to some other participants. So in that scenario, for example, you would register Keycloak as an interested party, and Keycloak would be notified with the SCIM post or put or patch requests whenever something happens to a user in Entra ID, right? So it has some. So SCIM has, as I said, many specifications. You can be a relying party, so you kind of register yourself as an interested party with another IDM solution, and then you would be notified when things happen. You could be the notifier yourself, so that's something that we do not support at the moment. It's like Keycloak then informing others of things when they happen, right? Which in Keycloak terms would roughly translate to a custom storage provider. You would think of it like a SCIM storage provider. And then when you register a user on Keycloak, then it would be propagated to interested parties elsewhere. And then you also have things like SCIM events that kind of complement the whole thing, right? So for this release, we are focusing on the APIs so that Keycloak can be registered as an interested party with Entra ID, Terraform, other providers, and then be notified when things happen, right? So we tested this thing mostly with Entra ID because they have this compatibility test suite that you can use to set up a whole bunch of different scenarios and test your compatibility with Entra ID, ranging from user creation, patch, which is something that our APIs don't support, but except for the SCIM ones. So SCIM defines patch operations that we support. You have put for creation of new users. So and also search. You can also search Keycloak using the SCIM protocol. It has a well-defined search structure with all sorts of parameters that you can tweak and receive objects that you are interested in. The release focused on base users because SCIM has schemas for every type of resource that you want to manage. So one of those is users. Another one is enterprise users, which you can think of as enhanced user with things like department, name of the manager, all sorts of things that would apply to enterprise users. And then groups. And groups is very basic. Basically, you create, delete groups, and then you manage memberships. And those are the resources we started with. And those are the ones that have a schema in the SCIM standards. We could enhance those to other things like roles, for example. It would be very similar to groups, but it would need like a custom schema because it's not defined in the standard. There are plans for doing that, but we decided to focus on what's in the specifications, right? And so to answer the question, we tested with EnterID. No idea about Terraform, how that would look like. I think it should work because we have a pretty extensive test suite covering all sorts of aspects of SCIM. But I haven't myself tried, so I can't really say.
Yeah, well, okay, but then maybe there's a different twist in this question here. So if I set up Keycloak to do the SCIM thing with EnterID, can I use Terraform to tell Keycloak that it should use, or that it can set all the SCIM parameters? Is it just some realm settings at the moment, some realm attributes, and that's it? Or what else is there to configure for SCIM?
At the moment, you only set the feature to enable to say that the APIs are exposed.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. So any external party that has Keycloak registered as an interested party can send requests to Keycloak. Right? The SCIM configuration doesn't do much. We don't even have like an admin UI for SCIM at the moment, where you could, for example, switch features on and off, like change what you want to support with your SCIM server.
Yeah. All right, that's cool. So yeah, and I read in some of the notes that you even could use like fine-grained admin permissions to restrict the access of the EnterID to your users in a way. Or is that not something that you would recommend at the moment?
I think this is something that we've been revisiting because it falls under a larger feature that we're working on. We're kind of revisiting all the APIs and what kind of access they require, right? For SCIM, I don't recall exactly what roles we require. I think we have to be an admin to use the APIs, but I'm not 100% sure.
Okay. Yeah, and at some point it sounds like the SCIM API is the better admin API. Or eventually, maybe. Not now, but maybe eventually. What's your take on that?
Well, I mean, the specs themselves are they're quite old by now, right? Okay. This is a long overdue thing, right? I wish we could go back in time and kind of revisit this thing earlier so that we kind of would be able to remodel our, storage layer, because it's really neat,
Okay. Yeah. All right. I'm going now by the question, so excuse myself that to the audience that we are jumping from one question to another. So next one up is from Nico, asking what is the difference between JWT Authorization Grant to the external to internal token exchange and the current experimental feature token exchange internal V2? Long question. So yeah, I might take this one. So the biggest difference is that JWT Authorization Grant is supported while the others are not. Experimental feature token exchange external to internal V2 will be removed rather sooner than later. We might even remove it in the next minor release because it was always experimental. It was never documented. It will be gone very, very soon. The existing external to internal token exchange yeah, all the other, like the V1 token exchange will eventually be gone, but I think we'll schedule that for the next minor release. Sorry, next major release, 27. I think that's what is currently scheduled for. I hope that answers Nico's question. Otherwise, you might need to add one more to it. Yeah, we're now jumping back to workflows. Another question from Nico. So Nico is saying he's missing a workflow event like user session deleted, so I can immediately react upon a removed session login timeout for federated users, remove them from the database.
Oh, yes. So there's a story around that, and Alexander might be familiar with it. Which, so as I mentioned, this feature was initially designed to replace transient users. And what happens with transient users is the user doesn't exist in Keycloak at all, right? It's created, associated with the session, and stored as part of the session. So when the session is gone, the user is gone. We are not quite there with workflows yet, exactly because of this missing user session deleted. We have the event, but it's not currently fired from every place where a user session can be terminated. We have a tracker for this. I would say like half of the work has been done already, I think even by Alexander's team. We need to pick that up so that we can rely on the event. The reason we don't support this right now is because we cannot rely that the event is fired in every place where it should be fired, right? So for that to happen, we would need to first finish that task, ensure that whenever Keycloak destroys a session, we are notified by it, and then we can have a workflow rely on this event. So that's the reason why this is missing at the moment.
Yeah, I'm just now sharing this one. Let me see how I can add this to a chat here. So the event is already there. Well, you could have a half working event, like that fires most of the time, but I'm not sure if that is so much of a good use there. And in that event, in that issue that I just shared, there's then one more item that is then containing this, how to delete, where to handle the deleting users. I think we're missing out on 2 are fixed, 4 more are missing, but we're on a very good way to have the user session deleted event there as well.
Yeah, one thing that I would also like to highlight is that even when we have that in place, it might not be enough for workflows, because there are times when the user has multiple sessions active, and then just because one of the sessions was destroyed doesn't mean it was the last one, right? So
then you need
most
to
probably,
check,
right? Yeah, but then that would come as in the form of a workflow condition, right? So it will have the event to trigger the workflow, and then a condition that would check if it's the last one, and then the workflow would trigger, and then you could do whatever you want to do.
So to sum it up, there's some work to be done, and we're looking for people to support, to help. Is that the thing?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So let's do with that. Olivier is asking, what is the usage of Keycloak workflow compared to an identity manager workflow?
I'm assuming by identity manager workflow, you mean things like provisioning and then reacting to changes too. Yeah, so workflows can be used for those things, right? You can provision, you can, we were even discussing within the team, what does it mean to have workflows and SCIM, right, together. So SCIM activates, and then you provision a user on Entry ID, for example. Keycloak gets notified, creates the user locally, and you might want to decorate this user, go a little bit beyond what SCIM allows you to do. So you could have workflows, for example, based on the email domain of the user that was created. You might want to make that user join a group or get some roles, right? So you could use, workflows to complement, this identity management workflow that initiates from the SCIM provider. There are other specs that are also built on top of events, like, for example, shared signals, which also can do something where workflows can be used to enhance the overall flow that you're looking to implement. So I would say workflows can do those things. Provision users can do things like offboarding and tracking active users. All are identity management related things, but they can be used for other things as well, right? You can control other parts of the server. Like, for example, you could create a workflow that checks if your realm settings are coherent with a particular security standard that your company has to follow, right? It's not IDM related. It goes beyond. Workflows is kind of unbounded in the way that you can do pretty much anything, provided you have the right conditions and steps for that, right?
All right, good. So jumping through the comments, so another one is very happy to see SCIM support coming. So please, well, I think there's now a blog post about SCIM. That was just published in our Keycloak blog. I might show it in the chat in a second. Yeah, and then I think with the next release we can expect some documentation. But even now, please provide feedback, open GitHub issues as bug, and we can have a look at them. Thomas Diamond, who's one of the two main maintainers of the Keycloak Terraform provider. If you have any problems with SCIM and Terraform, just raise an issue and they will get back to you, which is great to hear. Oren asked a question. He opened 2 issues about the workflow. I saw that you're already supporting excluding users that have identity providers specified, but what about to exclude SAML users at all? And also about disable user action in the workflow. I saw that even on disabled user workflow is triggered. Can you guess why? Was it something that needs some work?
I'll start with the last one first. So the workflow is triggered by events, right? It cares about events and then conditions that it applies to the resource that is related to the event. So I authenticate with a user. The event is the user authenticated event, and then I could also impose some conditions on the user themselves, right? Like groups they belong to. So it doesn't really check. It doesn't care if the resource is enabled at all, right? It triggers on events. If that's important, then we would need a condition to say like is enabled is a condition to trigger the workflow. We don't have that implemented by default, though. It would be a nice contribution. It's a very easy thing to implement, by the way. So yeah, it could be done. As for SAML users, yeah, that's a good question. We would need to take a better look into SAML users. I don't think they got all the love they needed for workflows. I would say, for OIDC it's easy. You have the federated identities. You can create workflows for those pretty easily, but for SAML, yeah, I would say let's raise a ticket and start discussing this.
All right. Good. So you need to share your GitHub usernames after the call, so people can ping you.
Yeah, sure.
All right. Yeah, Nico asked again about the token exchange. I think I covered that in my answer. Yeah, the exchange external to internal v2 was only introduced some time ago. Yeah, it was only introduced some time ago. It's experimental, and we found that it's lacking in some places. So it's going to be rather gone rather sooner than later. So Martin, is it right? Federated client authentication is a great addition, supporting specific Kubernetes and OIDC compliant providers. Yeah. So yeah, if you have a story to share with federated client providers, federated client authentication and all these providers, we're, I'd say, happy to feature that in our blog. So please share your story and ping me, and we can get you that, let's say, presence or that audience that you deserve for your blog post. Going further in the questions, Oren is asking, I see that there's already support for excluding users with a specific identity provider. Yeah, again, with the SAML users to exclude them. I think that Stefan already answered that one. Oren asking regarding the disable user action in the workflow. I noticed that the workflow is still triggered. Oh, yeah, sorry, I think I had this question already. what does the roadmap look like for fine-grained admin permissions? I'm interested in allowing a team manager to user to create users within a group which have
I can take this.
Yeah. Okay, good. Go ahead.
So, okay, FJP. So this story is, at the moment, we're working on enabling FJP for organizations, which I think is going to be is a necessary step to have, self-service provider, right? So where you would basically create an organization and hand the keys of the organization to some admin in that space, and then this person would be able to then restrict further what other users or members from that organization are capable of doing, right? So it's ongoing work at the moment. We're revisiting FJP to make that happen. I'm not sure about restricting to only a group. It's the scope of this work is a little bit broader because it falls under organizations. But now that we have support for groups in organizations, which was kind of a necessary step for us to later on support roles for organizations, which is a highly demanded thing, then FJP is going to allow you to create an org and grant permissions only related to that org or groups to specific users of the org. So that's the current state of FJP. It's an ongoing work. I think for the next release, we're going to have something in this area.
Yeah. Right. So next up is a question about zero downtime support in general and InfiniSpan 16 in particular. How easy or hard was it to implement support in InfiniSpan 16? So what the InfiniSpan team did, they changed their internal marshalling to ProtoStream completely. So that was a lot of hard work. And with that, they can now have some automated tests or even like static checking that all their serializations don't break between patch releases of InfiniSpan, which means we can have like InfiniSpan 16.0, 6.00, InfiniSpan 16.01, InfiniSpan 16.02, all these different patch releases. And then the test will show that they are actually compatible with each other when it comes to serializing and deserializing the messages. And this was then the basis and the foundation that we can declare, yes, in Keycloak we also support then rolling updates for patch releases, even if the patch release version of InfiniSpan changes. That also came along with another talking and discussion with the Drake Groups project. So this also now guarantees that discussion. So this is then also, so it came a long way with J Groups and InfiniSpan, plus some work on the Keycloak side that we now support zero downtimes in a good way. We also talked to the Quarkus team, so that they have now a very graceful way of shutting down the HTTP stack so that you really don't miss any HTTP calls that are then running during the shutdown phase, as long as you give it enough time to complete. So that should, well, hopefully it should be a lot better than before, put it this way. So there's another question. Does Keycloak's multi-IDP brokering model map to a recognized federation standard, or is it primarily a Keycloak-specific brokering pattern built on the standard SAML OIDC connections? Is there a recommended standard-based reference model for placing Keycloak in front of multiple upstream IDPs like Okta, Entra? Could you point me to the relevant documentation or architecture guidance? Sounds like core IAM, Stefan.
Yeah, I don't think it follows any recognized federation standard. Instead, it relies on many standards to kind of proxy, different brokers using different protocols. I don't think it follows any standard, not that I know of.
Okay.
No.
Yeah, and I think there are also no guides on how to put it in front of an Entra ID or Okta that we maintain from the Keycloak side of things. As you know, testing things with Entra ID and they have their own test suite, as you said, Stefan. Is there any plans that we have a guide eventually on how to set it up with Entra and with SCIM? Do you plan any particulars on that, or rather not?
I think it might be worth adding, some instructions, at least for the major providers out there. Entra ID is one of the biggest. So, yeah, to me, it makes sense, right? Everything that's well documented and officially documented is better, right? So,
yeah,
definitely for the next release, something that we can improve on once we have space for a proper documentation, I guess.
Yeah, at some points we were then claiming, well, we only put things in our documentation once we also have it really tested and integration tested in our pipeline. And that's
this is why,
something that,
this is why in this release you don't have formal documentation on SCIM, for example, right? It's an experimental feature and it doesn't have official docs. So the next one though allows us to start building some documentation as tech preview. Then I think it might be a good thing to track something like that. I'll open a tracker for this because I think it's really interesting.
Yeah. And sometimes we had this, this quick or this dirty pass when we said, well, we only have this documentation community maintained in our upstream docs. We've done it sometimes, but if some community members want to support us in providing this documentation, I think that could be also a great addition to Keycloak, even if we say it's just community supported documentation. It's a fine line. In the end, it needs to be helpful. Maybe we would eventually remove it from our documentation when we find that it's no longer maintained, it's outdated. But it's going to be a best effort as long as we don't have a full integration in our nightly pipelines. All right, so I think we are done with the current questions. So I'd say let's ask the audience to give us more questions. I'll keep an eye on the stream. But then let's take the opportunity to dive more deeper into, we also had some observability changes and where Martin was involved. Maybe you want to tell us more about that part?
Yeah, all right. Finally, something for me. So it started in 26.5 release as we provided also support for OpenTelemetry metrics and OpenTelemetry logs. Right now we are relying on Quarkus integration for that. So right now, even on the Quarkus side, these features are not supported. They are in a preview or experimental phase, let's say. But due to this initiative, we gathered all these requirements for OpenTelemetry. We provided the telemetry configuration, so no need to put settings separately for logs, metrics, traces, right? But right now you can connect all these three pillars of observability, right? Logs, metrics, traces, to one supporting OpenTelemetry collector, right? So the observability stack for users should be much easier to do that. So right now we are in a phase that we are gather feedback on those features related to the logs and metrics especially. So with this release, we provided the telemetry configuration inside the Keycloak CR. So you can configure the telemetry, the one point for the OpenTelemetry collector at one single place in the operator, and everything is set for you. So all these data are emitted to the one collectors, which is nice. We also provided the custom request headers for the telemetry because there's some requirements, when accessing the observability tools and backends, to basically provide some additional headers, mainly for authorization for that, right? So I'm looking forward to see how the observability will improve in Keycloak in follow-up releases. Let's see if we are get the OpenTelemetry logs and metrics to the supported phase. As for the tracing, we will see. And there were some improvements about the service monitor. Also adding to the Keycloak CR, as right now mainly used for the metrics and Prometheus, right? So it's nice to check it out.
Yeah, I think I'm a long time user of Prometheus, so I'm very, very used to this metrics endpoint. At the same time, with Keycloak, when Keycloak is under very high load and actually overload, there's a situation where you can't pull the logs anymore from the HTTP endpoint because Keycloak is overloaded. I'm hoping that at least when you do OpenTelemetry metrics, OpenTelemetry will still be able to push those metrics to your observability stack, so you have like some out of normal band channel to process all this information from the metrics. That would then give you better insights why your system is stalling at that very moment in time. So I'm excited about the upcoming metrics here. So Givan is then also excited about JWT Authorization Grant. And someone was then asking about, agentic workloads. What is in scope for agentic identity use cases? So we had a little, bit part of this agentic thing here. Takashi was adding support more support for the MCP protocol. We actually have a dedicated page for that. I'm now switching to this other tab here. So it's about, there are different versions around, latest one being, to my best knowledge, November last year. And this is then changing in each release to getting more and more parts supported and enhanced. And with the latest 26.6 release, you will see that the OAuth client ID metadata document. This is an emerging standard, so it's not yet fully finalized. And as long as it's finalized, it's eventually like preview or maybe even experimental support. At the moment, it's experimental, and eventually will be preview support. But it can only be fully supported once the standard is released. At the same time, the version of November of the MCP is already using it. So yeah, it's evolving. We're supporting more and more standards here. And I'd say this guide linked here integrating with the MCP protocol would be the go-to place for you. I also know that people using Spiffy Spire to authenticate agents in more places. So this might also be a thing that is then better supported in Keycloak 26.6. Again, that's a standard as preview or in draft, and that's why the feature is in preview. But from what we see, it should be very stable now, and you can use it to authenticate your agentic workloads with Keycloak. Going on with more questions. So Zeus is asking regarding observability, does it mean Keycloak pod will expose a metric endpoint so Prometheus can scrape the metrics? So Keycloak can already do that today, and I believe it's there, I think maybe even from Keycloak 24 or 25 onwards. So there's a metrics endpoint that you can scrape. Let me have a look at the guides. So when you go to the guides overview of Keycloak, we actually have a full observability section in here. And then this is the one new guy that Martin was talking about, centralize your observability stack with OpenTelemetry. The other was when stacking your health and then gaining insights with metrics. And when you go to the insights with metrics one, this will talk first about the Prometheus metrics endpoint. That is then part of the management interface of Keycloak, like it's on a separate port. It's not where your usual workload goes. It's giving you the metrics, it's giving you the health probes. Yeah, please take that as a starting point. I'll also put it into our chat. I hope that will help you in your observability story. Yeah, Thomas is apparently also happy about OpenTelemetry headers. Yeah, maybe you can share a story with us on where you want to use them. I'm not sure. Well, I was surprised when Martin was adding them, I would say. But apparently people were asking for them, right? Is it used for authentication, is it mostly? Or what do you know are people using that one for?
Yeah, it was mainly used for token propagation to the backend service. Yeah. Anyway, it would be nice to have more feedback on the telemetry stuff, as we usually lack of discussions and stuff. So we don't really know what the community need in this manner. So it would be great if we get more information about your setups, your requirements, and we can focus on that, right, and plan some additional work on this one. Yeah.
Good. Yeah, Thomas is asking, should we also make the user agent used in the HTTP client provider configurable? Yeah, we're jumping topics quite a bit here. So that might be around like when Keycloak is calling a different IDP or something else, they would not know where that this call comes from a Keycloak instance, because the user agent is probably set to an Apache HTTP client. So yeah, we can discuss that, and I think the proper way to discuss that would be the Slack channel of the Keycloak Slack channel on the CNCF. I think it has maybe some things on the pro side, some on the con side. So maybe some servers are doing some optimizations for the HTTP client quirks, and they can use the HTTP header for that. Once we change that, they will not be, they can no longer use the user agent, but maybe we could add a suffix for Keycloak. Yeah, let's discuss that on the Slack chat. Let's see what we come up with. All right. Yeah, Martin is also handing in the CIMD. I'm not a specialist in agents, but let's see how that works. In relation to Agent AI, there will be a new edition regarding OAuth 2 resource indicator experimental, but I'm not sure which version it will be released. Yeah, so this state is really in flux with agents. The good news is that we have a Keycloak release every 3 months, so we can catch up, enhance, and make things work. And yeah, keep us updated, or also try out the releases. Even if there are bugs, we can try to fix them in the patch release of Keycloak, so it can unblock you. We really want to make Keycloak a good citizen in that agentic space. Right, so what else did we cover? Organization groups in there. Stefan, what's your take on organization groups?
Okay. Yeah. So there's always a story behind everything, right? So yeah, okay. So one of the most requested enhancements for organizations is the ability to assign roles to users, but organization-specific roles, not realm roles, right? It's kind of not possible to do it without proper group support, right? Because the usual use case is you create groups, then you organize your users in groups, and then you assign permissions to those groups, right? Or roles. You can, of course, map groups to claims. It's possible. So that alone should enable some use cases. But I see the organization groups as a step towards a larger feature, which is to support the roles within organizations.
Okay. Yeah, good for adding
that's the story.
All right. Yeah. Good. Yeah, and I see that we are entering the last 10 minutes. So if you have any more questions, please put them in the chat. There's one more highlight I want to point out. So for a long time, we did not provide any details on how to set up databases for Keycloak and, well, besides of maybe AWS Aurora as part of this high availability guide. And then now we're actually providing a guide for Cloud Native PG. It's another CNCF project. We now have the blueprint showing you how to install Cloud Native PG, how to set up standby databases, how to do backups, how to do restore. And the team, the production readiness team, put a lot of work in here and getting that to run. So it's really about, yeah, if you have multiple availability zones in a stretched cluster, how to do that, how to install it. And when you then scroll down, there are then more building blocks. Like the first building block is just installing it maybe. Rather sooner than later, you want to schedule some backups. We did an example how to schedule that for S3. Then you want to monitor your Cloud Native PG, then it's doing its backups, that the standbys are healthy. And eventually you would then recover the Cloud Native PG cluster from an S3 backup. So I really love to hear maybe your comments here in the chat if you're using Postgres and if you're using Cloud Native PG. Even if you're using Cloud Native PG today, it would be great if you could have a look at this docs for two reasons. Either maybe there's something new in there, or on the other side, maybe we missed out an important bit. So we can improve the docs even more. Let us know which of the two is then the case. Hopefully it should allow people to do an onboarding with Keycloak a lot simpler. Right. Good. And yeah, that's all I have. And this is all I wanted to highlight here. Let's give it a last round of things for the audience from our speakers.
Or I can start with one topic missing, if it's all right.
Good, please do.
Yeah, we haven't included into the docs release notes or something, but next thing is coming, and it's support for client CR. So we found out that we lack the functionality that old Keycloak operator introduced, right? So right now we are trying to build a new client API, full declarative. So in a cloud native team, let's see how it goes. Right now it's experimental. So the main items were closed, solved. So just give it a try. Let us know if it works to you in your on the dev environment, please. Yeah. So next thing is coming.
Great. Handing it over to you, Stefan. Last words.
I think we covered pretty much everything that was important from our team for 26.6. What I want to say is that we're working on more improvements to all of that. So SCIM is going to be moving. SCIM support is going to be moving to tech preview on the very next release. Then there's some ongoing FJP work that aims to make the administration of organizations better, support for organization roles, enhancements to workflows. There are many things that are going to be coming my way related to workflows, and I plan to include as many as I can now that the feature is going to be used by more people. Apart from that, like again to thank you guys for having me here today. It was really fun experience. I hope to be joining again in the future. It's always nice to see all those people from the community sending questions. Huge shout out to Thomas and these shared signals work. We had a lengthy discussion about it this week. Also Martin with the work on AI. I have been following his LinkedIn account for a while, tried a couple of things he did on that space, really cool stuff. It's really nice to be working on something that has a huge, vibrant community. So yeah, hoping to be here again in the future.
Great. So I'll nail you on that one. So definitely, it's all recorded, as you know, Stefan. So no way to back out of that. So yeah, great to have you both here on this call and to celebrate this release. And it wouldn't have been so great and exciting with all the audience here. So thanks for asking all the questions and coming here together and celebrating this release. Then see you in the next one. And if there's any topic you want to see dedicated Keycloak Hour of Code, let me know. Looking forward to it. Thanks a lot, and see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.